Hi, my name is Mike Manning. I'm the director of the Futures program here at All-Star Baseball Academy, joined by two former Major League Baseball players, Ben Davis from NBC Sports Philadelphia and Zach Lutz, the director of instruction here at All-Star Baseball Academy. We're sitting down today just to have a nice conversation about baseball. Ben, let me ask you you guys a couple questions here. You know, when you were younger and you guys were starting to train and you realized baseball was your path that you wanted to go, what was the training like and where did you train when you were kids?
You know, for me, having my father be a college coach, you know, it was pretty easy for me at a young age to be around the players that he had there, you know, and it really helped me take my game to the next level, you know. So my training basically consisted of going to his practices at Alvernia when I was 8 years old, you know, training with, you know, the college kids. So for me, like every time I would go into a new season, I always felt like I was one step ahead of my competition. So for me, that's what my training basically consisted of, you know, growing up.
Did you have one particular player that you remember as a kid, you know, as a young kid that really stuck out to you and you still remember him, or do you stay in contact with him at all?
So there was a guy, Todd Meyer. I'm not sure if you've heard of him or whatever, but he was from York. Played for my dad for 3 years. He was drafted by the Montreal Expos when they were still around. But this guy was National Player of the Year. His senior year, he had 525 with 25 home runs and 120 RBIs. This is in 40 games in a Division III level. And the guy, he was somebody that I looked up to. You know, he wore this white puka shell necklace that I'm like, man, maybe if I wear the white puka shell necklace, like maybe I can hit like this guy, you know? But, you know, that's one guy that I, you know, always looked up to growing up. Nobody professionally wise. This was just somebody that I saw and, you know, how he went about his business. And that's how I kind of, you know, wanted my game to represent that.
Ben?
Yeah, you know, just growing up, it was my brother and I, you know, just had one sibling, my brother Glenn, and my dad was a big influence on us. We'd always be out hitting, or what was good, I mean, we didn't really have any great facilities to work out at. We were always outside somewhere, and
sure.
Glenn and I would go out and play long toss. We did have a long driveway, so that was go up in big backyards. We'd go play long toss, and we'd have like a flip machine we'd hit into a cage, and that was really about it. And Dad would always make time. He was a school teacher, so he'd be home from school. We'd get out after school, and we hit a lot. We went to different fields all around and hit, and you know, this basically just try to get better each day.
I think I remember one time, I think I was either finishing up college or was in pro ball, and I think I was at the old RBIs in Broomall. Mm-hmm. And I think your dad made me throw you and Glenn BP, and I'm just there trying to get some work in. I remember your dad being like, hey, breaking balls, right? He's calling pitches, and I'm like, I think these guys just want to hit for real.
We did. We hit a lot, and I mean, that's definitely like my dad. I remember one time we were at Chichester High School, and we were at the varsity field, and that was one of the fields we could go to because they had an L screen. We didn't, there were no portable L screens back then. But I remember his arm was really hurting, so he went across Chichester Avenue and ran an extension cord from one of the houses. He knocked on the door, said, hey, can we borrow your electricity? Ran an extension cord from the house all the way across Chichester Avenue to the pitcher's mound and set up our pitching machine so we could hit on the field. There was nothing he wouldn't do.
Yeah. So basically what we're all saying is obviously we're here at the All-Star Baseball Academy here in Westchester, and the kids are spoiled to have a place like this.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've all probably been to Broomall and all the other facilities, but I think this is everybody's favorite because of the field. You know, if we all had a place like this growing up, how would it have affected you?
It would have been night and day. I mean, it's like I said, you know, we'd be out with big hoodies on, you know, and trying to just, you know, do long toss in December, whereas you have a place like you can come in and do anything you wanted in here. You obviously can hit in the cages, you can hit on the field, you take ground balls, you can long toss, you can do everything in here. And it's not just it's all the other different facilities that, you know, my son is 14 years old. He's been playing with All-Star for 4 years, but he having that ability to go to all these different tournaments where these facilities are unbelievable. Yeah. I was talking with Teg's coach, Mike McCardle, who's been with All-Star forever. I said, Michael, can you imagine playing on this field when you were 14 years old? I mean, we're out there with the fields I played on. You're picking rocks up so you wouldn't take one off the jaw.
Exactly.
You know,
Sure.
I mean, it's everything that All-Star encompasses. But this place is special.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a little town called Mountain, right outside of Reading, and growing up, it was going to like the local playgrounds. Going to local playgrounds, and these fields are just all dirt, like you said, picking up the stones, throwing them away, just covered in weeds.
Yeah,
Sure.
But with what they have here, I mean, just looking around this facility and having this field, I mean, for kids not to take advantage of this, I mean, that's I don't even know where to go, because you got all these cages, you got this. I mean, it's top notch.
Awesome. So let's kind of talk about Zach. Where did you go to high school, and where did you play Little League? And tell me about your experience kind of coming up a little bit, and what the general facilities were like, when you were a kid.
Yeah. So I went to Governor Mifflin High School in Shillington. I played Little League, but I've never really got into travel baseball until I was, a sophomore, junior in high school. Before that, it was basically just going out with your Little League and just, having fun. Like we said, like the parents showing up with the orange slices after the, after the game, just having fun. But getting into the travel ball, they didn't have that back then for that age group, like the 12, 13, 14. They
Sure.
didn't have that then, and this is, 10, 15 years ago. It was mostly for the older guys. But then seeing what it did for me, and all the doors that it opened for me, I'd highly recommend it to anybody. How
about you, Ben?
Yeah, I grew up in Aston in Delaware County. Played Aston Middletown Little League, and again, we like Zach. We didn't have those travel teams, so we played. I remember playing Codell Teener baseball, 13 to 15 for Chichester, and then I played Brookhaven Senior Babe Ruth. Very fortunate that I had an opportunity to play for the junior national team in the summer of '94 before my senior year at Malvern Prep. I graduated Malvern Prep and then just went on to pro ball from there. But it was Little League. You had one practice week, maybe play 2 games, and when Little League was over, you're done. Then you move on to football. And that's just the way it was. So having the opportunities that the kids have now, it'd be hard not to take advantage of it.
Sure. Well, you mentioned you went to University of Miami. Coming through Malvern Prep, can you kind of just talk to us a little bit, like how you ended up choosing Miami? I'm sure the USA baseball experience had something to do with it, but obviously you were drafted out of high school. But how was the recruiting process for you back then?
Well, it was very fortunate for me. My brother is 15 months older than I was, and a lot of scouts came to see him his senior year. I was a junior. So he got drafted in the 18th round. I think it was by the Twins or the Cardinals, but he had a full ride to Vanderbilt. So a lot of those scouts that had come to see my brother were like, "Who's that skinny little kid behind the plate? Man,
Sure.
He's got a pretty decent arm." So I think that really benefited myself.
Sure.
So a lot of those scouts came to see me my senior year, and playing for the junior national team really did help. That was awesome. So. Back then, you're allowed 5 visits. I don't know what it is now, but you're allowed.
I don't even think they take visits anymore.
Oh, really?
They just take commit over social media.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So we had you were allowed 5 official visits. So I went out to the University of California. I went to Arizona State. I went to Miami. I went to Notre Dame, and my 5th and final visit was at Stanford. And I remember you can only be on campus for 48 hours back
Sure.
then. And I remember I got a call from Coach Marquis at the time, and he said, it was a Monday, and I was supposed to leave on Thursday. And he said, "We're canceling your visit." And I was like, "Excuse me, Coach, why are you canceling the visit?" He said, "You will never step foot on a college campus." And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? And it came to fruition. He was right. He said, "We just want to save our money." And he was right. But yeah, it was that whole process was fun because coming from a small school in southeast Pennsylvania, you just didn't really think that would really happen. Like you would get drafted that high. But it did happen. But all that thought process goes through your mind. You're thinking it's nice to be wanted. It's nice to be
Sure.
have coaches go after you. And but I think the programs like All Star now, All Star they facilitate that for you, make it that much easier.
Sure. Zach, how about you? I mean, what was I know your recruiting process was probably really easy, but at least talk us through kind of how you ended up playing for your dad, right?
There's so many of the older guys that do lessons here. That's like the first thing they ask me is, Coach, you played 10 years professionally, you played everywhere. Why'd you go to Division III, Alvernia? You know? So my recruiting process was, I tell a lot of the guys, I had really good offers. University of South Carolina, I was really close with Coach Ray Tanner at the time. Had a good offer from Stanford, from Notre Dame, and some other, really good Division I high-level schools. But I just remember one time I was in homeroom. I was in 11th grade, and I got called down to the principal's office. I'm like, what did I possibly do? So I get down there, and it was a letter from Ray Tanner saying, hey, we want to set up a visit and all this stuff. So for me, everybody else, my dad and my mom, they were all pumped up, and that's awesome. Because then, South Carolina was the top team in college baseball.
Sure.
And for me, I was just like, whatever. I could really care less. I knew from day one that I was going to play for my dad and help him win championships, And for me, going there, I got to play third base and I got to pitch as well. And that really helped me, bring out the best in me, surrounding yourself with the good coaches. And for me, it was my dad. A lot of these kids I've been doing lessons with now for 2-3 years, but they're so, knee deep into me being with them and helping them guide them in these lessons, whether it's outside of these lessons, But for me, the recruiting process, like you said, it was pretty easy because I knew I wanted to go and play for my dad. But I just wanted to look out for myself and help prepare me for what I wanted. Because from day one, my thing was Major League Baseball. That was it. Yeah, I'm gonna go to school and everything. I'm gonna get a good education. But for me, it was one track mind, Major League Baseball. Let's get it done.
That's right. Both of you guys kind of mentioned showcases and what we do here at All Star, and we have showcases for kids that are interested in Division II and III programs. We have kids that are academically minded. We have then we have our Top 100 showcase where we have kids that come from all over the country. I think this year we have kids coming from California, Colorado, Puerto Rico, Florida, and I think we have a kid coming from Texas, which is pretty neat for those kids. They want to come up here for the academics. Back when you guys were growing up, and even when I was growing up, showcases really didn't exist, but there were sprinklings of them. Do you remember going to any of them, Ben?
Yeah, a couple. I remember the Carpenter Cup was a big one. Get to play at the Vet was there's nothing better than that. Get to play at the Vet. I remember playing the Keystone State games.
Yes.
We had our practices every Saturday at Westchester University. So it was different events. They were few and far between, but you do remember them, and they kind of stuck out in your mind because it was fun because you play here and there, but when you get those tournaments together, it's fun to play against that better competition, right? Sure. It's a lot more fun to go out there and compete as opposed to just throwing your glove out there and knowing you're going to win. So going out there against a better competition is really what it's all about.
I remember, this is a great story. I remember playing in the Carpenter Cup and going out with a good friend of mine, Tom Corrick, who ended up playing at Villanova and was drafted by the White Sox. And we went out to Veterans Stadium. It was the Carpenter Cup at the Vet?
Yep.
You were coming through?
Oh, yeah.
And we went out and we played catch. And the first ball that I threw to him, that was so big that he lost the depth perception and it actually hit him square in the chest. He just missed it. But that's like my lasting memory of the Carpenter Cup.
Yeah.
The Keystone State games. Did you play in the Keystone State games as well?
Just the Carpenter Cup. That was it. That was it for me. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know today kids can showcase just about every single weekend.
Yes.
All the way through the year if they really want to. It's a little bit different now being in this COVID environment with the NCAA dead periods and quiet periods. And I know we're working hard as a company to try to provide as much scouting and recruiting information on our kids and other kids from around the country.
I think to kind of add on to that, Mike, I think All Star does the best job in the guidance with these showcases. So like the academic, with the Top 100. There's so many different ones that kids can sign up for. But then when we're talking about the whole college recruiting process and all that type of stuff as well, you don't, and the other guys involved in the futures, they don't steer them in the wrong direction. We're not going to tell a kid that's 5'5", 160 pounds, hey, go check out Vanderbilt when they're having a showcase.
Sure.
We want to steer them in the right direction because that And yeah, I mean that goes a long way.
Well, Mike, we were talking before we started filming this today, but you were talking about, how important it is for you to go and talk to these different coaches and find out what's the best selling points of these different programs, and how important it is to know the coach. You're talking about the experience you had down at the Naval Academy.
Yep.
You know all these people, and knowing what's going to be, the kids, so what's going to be the best fit for each kid. It's not just like, each kid can go to this school and each kid swings the same or throws the same. All kids are different, but how important is that for you?
It is, and you can take it multiple levels down the line. And for me, sometimes I can tell, knowing the kids on a personal level the way I do, if they're going to be a match with a head coach.
Yeah.
And that is, back in the day, you talk about taking your visits. That's what the 5 visits were for. So
Right.
you could meet the coaches, see what they're like, and obviously we all know the guy that's recruiting you is going to be way different than the guy that's coaching you when you end up on campus.
Right.
Unless you have a dad that's a coach, it might be really weird. But for me, it's being able to find that really good mix of academics, athletics, and the match between the player and the coach. Kids today don't understand that when you get to college, that if you're a pitcher, you're going to spend the majority of your time with just the pitching coach.
Right.
And if you're, an infielder or an outfielder, you're going to be with the position player coach. And it depends on where that head coach falls into the mix of, some guys head coaches might be more pitching guys. Sometimes it might be more position guys or hitting guys. But, I think we all know, even at the professional level, at the big league level where you guys played, whoever your coach is that's the guy you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's that relationship and that cohesiveness and understanding that, hey, I like that guy and I think I'm going to get along with him goes a long way.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's been some kids that I've kind of said, I don't know if this is
Yeah, because let's face it. Some kids, they can take a tough coach. Some kids need to be stroked. You can't go to a program that maybe the coach is a little tougher than the next guy, and the kid's going to go there and cower to that pressure. It's just different strokes for different folks.
Sure. So kind of not really back to the recruiting process, but more so just memories for you guys. In today's day and age where kids go to these tournaments all over the country, and on a normal year, a non-COVID year, you would have hundreds, if not thousands, of college coaches and pro scouts kind of converging in one place. And I always tell our kids there's levels to showcasing, and there's levels of events that kids can go to. And there's some national level events out there. You could say like the Area Code Games and East Coast Professional Showcase, which is run by scouts, that you guys probably would have gone to, or probably would have gone to back in high school. Do you ever remember like coaches and scouts being around your games in high school or college, or in high school and college for you? And what were your memories of that?
I mean, in high school, there was, I grew up in Berks County, so in high school, there was maybe 4 or 5 college coaches at a game, and usually it was Alvernia, Albright, Kutztown, like
Sure.
those schools. There wasn't like a North Carolina coming up. There wasn't like Kevin McMillan from Virginia, like around, but nowadays they're everywhere because social media is taken off, and kids post everything with, their bat exit velocity, how hard they threw their last pen, and all of a sudden that gets out. Coaches start following those kids. Next thing you know, they're reaching out to them via Instagram or Twitter, setting up something.
Sure.
But that's how crazy today's world is. And I think the only pro scout that I remember coming to games was Wilmer Reed. Everybody knows Wilmer Reed.
Everybody knows Wilmer.
But he was the guy that was around. But as far as pro scouts, we were lucky enough just to get college, coaches to come around.
Yeah, there was, I remember quite a few being at the games, and again, a lot of those guys had come to see my brother. And
Sure.
then my senior year I think I was a little bit more acclimated to it, and then some general managers started coming around. And I remember we played a game in my senior year, and I was at Malvern. We played a game up at Chestnut Hill. And I remember there were a lot of scouts there. And we got done the game, and I remember having a decent game, and all the scouts, they just started lining up behind the screen at home plate. And our coach, Mike Rooney, just started throwing me batting practice, and I had a wooden bat. Now I just played a game. I got all these scouts watching me, and I remember it was so, for an 18-year-old kid,
Yeah.
I just turned 18. It was kind of nerve-wracking, and thinking, I'm in the cage hitting it, I'm over swinging, I might pop a few up,
Sure.
but I remember riding home in the car with my folks, and I'm like, man, I said, mentally it's very draining.
Yeah.
But you got to have the wherewithal to just kind of say, listen, it's still the same game. I know it's harder, it's easier said than done, but it really is the same game you played in Little League.
It is.
You just have to. It's just played at a little bit faster pace. But it was a little nerve-wracking at the time, but it was fun. It was such a great experience to go through all that.
It is. It's great. And we've been fortunate enough here to watch some of these kids go through it. You mentioned taking BP after a game. I remember Pete Hissey, who went to Unionville High School and ended up signing with the Red Sox, had a great career. And congratulations to him. If he ever sees this, he just graduated from Wharton.
That's awesome.
So he's off in his professional life. I remember him calling me up one day. I was in here doing a lesson. He's like, hey, these guys want to see me hit after the game, and my high school coach doesn't throw a really good BP. Can you come out? And I was like, sure. And from here to Unionville High School is about 25 minutes, and I hustled over there after the game, saw the last inning, and get out there, and there's like 35 guys there to watch him take BP. And it's an interesting feeling, not only for him, but getting up there.
How am I going to hit his bat?
Yeah, I'm going to throw BP. Good thing I'm a right-handed thrower and he's left-handed. It's a little bit easier. But Zach, you mentioned a little bit you touched on the metrics just a little bit. And I know metrics is a really big thing. Ben, I know you deal with it every day, announcing with the Phillies, and I'm sure, the hot button topics are, launch angle,
exit velo,
exit velocity. Obviously, we see all what the guys are throwing now on TV, the pitchers. How do you, when you guys were coming up, how do you think you would have handled all of this metric-driven baseball society that we're in right now? I know it's a tough question.
It's a very tough question.
It's tough to even think about how we had it like when we were growing up, because now it's just everything's based on your bat exit, your launch angle, pitchers, your spin rate, like all these crazy metrics. When you look at some guys and they're all about it. You look at a guy like Christian Yelich, who's just like, two words that I hate are launch angle, and for me, like I don't know, I try to make the game as simple as possible. So I never thought about any of that stuff. Even today, when talking with these kids, I don't bring up a lot of that stuff because I don't want to confuse them, just trying to find a way to make the game simple. Maybe for me, the way I think is 10 years ago, but for all the kids that I have here, like they have success because I make the game, simple for them, because we can get in our own heads, a lot of these kids in here are crazy talented. Some of them, maybe even more talented than I was. But mentally, like I just knew what I needed to do. I had my own routine that I still do to this day, But I don't know. What about you with all these metrics?
There's a lot of different numbers that I think that pop up. I think some are great, some are not great. Yeah. The one that sticks out for me, there were actually two. Launch angle. I wasn't a guy. I'd really never thought I had off the charts bat speed. So launch angle, if they wanted me to hit the ball in the air more, I know I would just hit fly balls because I didn't have that. For guys with launch angle, need to have that bat speed that can generate that backspin and get it out of the ballpark. Me, I didn't have that bat speed. I just hit fly balls. I always wanted to hit the ball hard, and that's why exit velo for me is a big one, because the harder you hit the ball, the more consistently you hit the ball hard, the better chances of you getting a hit. That's just the way it is for me. And I remember a couple of years ago, we were at Target Field in Minnesota, and Joe Mauer came up. And when you sit up in the booth, nowadays when they don't have the shift on, that's when it really kind of sticks out. Like, wait a minute, there aren't four infielders to the right of second base. Something's wrong here. Joe Mauer comes up, and everybody was straight up. There's a reason Joe Mauer had 3 batting titles, because he used the whole field. Right? So that really stuck out in my mind, teaching kids to use the whole field. So that's where you can throw the launch angle out of the realm of everything, because use the whole field. The harder you hit the ball, you're going to get your knocks. And that's what makes it tougher to defend. So there's a lot of different things. All these things pop up. And if you have the right numbers that are really going to help you, then obviously, yes, you're going to use them. But in this day and age, I don't know what I've done with it. I just try to do the fundamentals were when I was growing up, that was key to everything. And I still think fundamentals are the key now. If you get so caught up in the numbers, sometimes that takes over as opposed to just playing the game the right way.
Sure. You mentioned fundamentals. I mean, we're probably 3 or 4 weeks into our futures program, and we got the young bucks out there now, and I know they've been we call it the big field for a couple of years, but still, I mean, our staff is constantly going over, this is where you play double play depth. This is very basic fundamental stuff. This is what straightaway in the outfield means. We're lining ourselves up with the bases, and they kind of look at you like, not weird, but they're kind of like, well, how come nobody's taught us this before?
Right.
And it's interesting to kind of watch these kids evolve, especially the young kids, from one year to the next, where, something as simple as, double play depth for middle infielders. And half of them don't have the arm strength yet to really make the play. So, and once they make a single play and they understand that's why they're there, and they're giving up, the 3-4 hole and the 5-6 hole to turn a double play, you can see the light goes on. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. I mean, it's just watch the game.
Yes.
Literally, just watch the game and look at the scoreboard. Dictates a lot about how the game is played. If you have a lefty up that's hitting rockets over the third base dugout, maybe you want to stick a step or two over. You know what I mean? If the guy's that late, it's just watching the game. I think kids kind of lose that. They get so caught up in analysis, and they just, hey, guys, he's late on everything. Maybe I'm going to move over a little bit.
Exactly. Cool. Ben, if you had and I know you have young kids in your family, what would you recommend for them? Here at All Star, would you recommend lessons, programs? I mean, I know Tag has done a bunch of things and he's on our teams, but what would you recommend for a young baseball player?
Well, obviously the fundamentals are key, and I know we keep talking about fundamentals, but they really are. If you don't play fundamental baseball in Little League or the big leagues, you're not going to win. If you don't catch the ball, hit the ball, throw the ball the right way, you're not going to win. So I think that's one thing that All Star does so well is they instill the fundamentals in the players. I got turned on to All Star because I would come in here in the off season and work out. And I would see the way the instructors handled the kids. And it was a one-on-one basis, and the instructors knew what they were talking about. It's not like they were sitting behind a screen just tossing balls. Good job, Johnny. Good job. They really offer those fundamentals. And I think that's something that I think goes a long way. And you can never go wrong with those lessons because those lessons instill those fundamentals that are going to get you better down the road.
Sure. Zach?
Yeah, and with my new title here of kind of being the trainer of the employees, for me, my goal for that is for each of the 5 buildings to get all the employees on the same page. I don't think it's very beneficial for a kid to go to one facility that is an all-star facility and be taught something completely different than where he would go if he was with me or somebody at the Westchester. So for me, to get everybody on the same page and teaching the fundamentals, and not teaching the whole, metrics and all this stuff, and not making the metrics the main thing. Yeah, we'll talk about the metrics, but not having that be our main focus. Teaching the fundamentals, teaching, having the kids have a certain routine that works for them, because every kid that comes in here is different. So for me as the instructor, I want to put a plan together that's based around that individual. I'm not going to make one guy, try to hit home runs right center where he weighs 100 pounds, where he can just line drive, short stroke to right field, So I'm excited where this company is headed with the lessons and basically everything else right now.
Sure. And I know Tag's getting to the point where he's going to get ready to start high school soon, and when our prospect camps come around, and he's going to be involved at some point in doing showcases and prospect camps, and even our tournaments, because I know his team's already playing our tournaments. What do you think his reaction is going to be when he's playing at places like Villanova and Rutgers and places where we host tournaments at like Duke and UNC? I mean, what do you think his reaction is going to be when he's on those fields as a young kid?
Well, he's going to be really excited to play on those facilities. And again, not having that opportunity when I was younger, I'm going to be happy for him.
Sure.
You get to go out and play at these different places. But I know he will be prepared, and I think that's going to add to it. It's not like you're just going there blindly and just, throw the ball up and see what happens. But he's going to be prepared, and he's going to be excited about having that opportunity to play at these unbelievable places.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've had more kids that have come through our program that have had the opportunity to play at these places, and then ironically they end up playing there in college, and they say it's such a huge advantage because it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
I've been there before, I've played there before, I'm comfortable with that field. So hopefully all the kids in our program get that opportunity down the line.
Definitely.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today, especially Ben Davis and Zach Lutz. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and obviously our website at www.allstarbaseballacademy.com.